5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, gentlemen. Got all four of us here tonight. All four horsemen. We had only three last week. We got all four tonight. T-Rock couldn't make it last week, but ready to rock tonight. So,
yes, sir.
I know you'll be bringing the heat. So we got a lot to talk about. We could easily spend a day or two talking about last weekend's games.
Yep.
And in some ways we probably already have. But I think the first thing is, first incredible slate of games, right? I mean, some of the best playoff games you'd ever want to see. Again, we all know the NFL is not rigged. Thankfully, none of us have to worry about that. But
not at all.
It is impressive that somehow they're able to not engineer these incredibly close playoff games every single year that are just incredible and keep you watching up until midnight if you have to. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Kudos to the NFL for constantly figuring out how to get lucky.
I know we're not going to recap last week's games, but can we just celebrate Tom Brady's performance? Just really enjoyed it. It brought so much joy to my soul to see him look like a 78-year-old man out there. Like, it was fantastic.
Boy, he
I loved
did. He did. Boy, that's what happens when you don't have an offensive line and you are 45 years old and you can't move around. That's what happens.
Or an encouraging wife, apparently. So.
Or an encouraging wife, yeah. You're unable to step up in a pocket because you are too old to literally step up into a pocket. That's what happens.
Things get bad.
Things get bad.
The walleye vision set in for sure.
That's right. You didn't want any. All right, guys. So let's talk a little bit about this upcoming weekend. It's been a good slate of games so far, and now I have no reason to believe that this weekend won't be as well. We're going to start off with the first game of the NFL weekend. This is going to be Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Jacksonville Jaguars, Kansas City Chiefs. Gentlemen, what say you? Who wants to take this game?
Legend versus legend.
That's right.
Generational talent versus generational talent.
Absolutely.
The golden arm, but you don't know which one I'm talking about.
Oh, not at all.
Versus the golden hair.
Golden hair, yeah.
Yeah, more like it. Yeah. Jags are currently getting 8.5. Does that sound right to everybody?
Yes.
8.5. Okay.
It's a lot.
8.5.
That's a lot.
That's 8.5 is a lot, but man, that's gonna. I mean, they got their hands full playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean,
they sure do. The
Chiefs are not the Chargers, right? We can say that for sure.
They are. Now, defensively, the Chiefs are 18th against the pass, so they're middle of the pack. So there's definitely chances that Golden Arm can can just throw his way into the AFC Championship game. But has there been a quieter MVP than we've seen this year with Patrick Mahomes? I feel like nobody is talking about Patrick Mahomes. Maybe they are, and I'm just not listening. But
I thought you were going to say Trevor Lawrence there.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes first in passing, 5,250 passing yards. He's first in touchdowns with 41, first in QBR, whatever you think about QBR. He's first in it. I don't know that we've ever seen a more quieter MVP race than the one we've seen. It was Tua, it was Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, and Mahomes just quietly, without Tyreek, just put up, superstar level numbers that you would expect of him. So no reason to think he won't continue on with that. Travis Kelce, 110 yards this year, 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns. Juju Smith-Schuster probably managed to get himself a little bit more money come next year, almost 1,000 yards, not quite. But the player that he signed in 2021, goes on the IR, ends up playing against the Steelers in the playoff game, and just quietly had a phenomenal year as a running back, but as a receiving running back was Jarrett McKinnon. That dude, 9 touchdowns. Every other game, like it just felt like every single game Jarrett McKinnon was catching a touchdown pass. So this is going to be tough sledding for the Jags. I mean, but who knows this? I don't even know what to say
when
anymore.
you're going against the Chiefs, no matter what. But
always, it's in Arrowhead.
The Jags are resilient. I'll say that.
Well,
they're young enough, and I think just ignorant enough to think that they could go in here and pull this thing out. And
I think you're right.
We can say whatever we want about Trevor Lawrence, and I think we all like that arm was kissed by leprechauns. Like he is obviously, you're not going to see a guy throw the ball like he is ever again. And so just enjoy it. Enjoy it.
Well, if you're the Jags too, man, you got a heck of a coach, and you got a coach with a ton of experience. And when he's able to come in with postseason experience and get that team ready, I mean, we've talked about it before, but it's why they didn't panic against the Chargers. They were dead and buried, and they didn't panic. And that's a coaching situation. Yep. And that's the difference now. Of course, there's no mismatch as it pertains to coaching when you go up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Andy Reid is as good as there's ever been. So they lose that advantage. Now it's going to have to go player for player, and talent-wise, the Chiefs are clearly the better team and the better pedigree. But again, Jacksonville, they're a gutsy team, man. They're scrappy. They don't give up.
Well, Baltimore was able to have a game against Cincinnati because they were able to keep Burrow off the field.
Yeah,
I mean, these monster drives, just time-eating drives that we kept them off. Jacksonville can't do that. They're not going to be able to do that. But, I mean, Trevor still had a good year. He's thrown for 4,100 yards. He has 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. It's a respectable year. So we give him a hard time, but it's a respectable year.
Very much so.
Yeah, the way I see this game, it's gonna it could be close for 1 or 2 quarters, and then Jacksonville is just gonna do what it is, or Kansas City is just gonna do what it is that they do. You can't cover Kelsey, you just can't do it. And I just in the end, he once again will assert himself in that ball game. And like you were saying with McKinnon, he just scores in bunches. He ended up with 9 because it was like, one game he'll have 2. Next thing you know, then he'll miss a game, and then next game he'll have 2 more. So that's how his scoring and his offense went for him this season. So as far as the Jags and Chiefs are concerned, it's I believe it's going to be all KC. And to piggyback on what you were saying, Jeff, Mahomes had a very quiet MVP type year because I think we're falling into the situation, which I know all of us are huge fans of a guy. I don't know if you remember him from Chicago. He's number 23. He played for the Bulls.
Oh, yeah. I know you're talking about.
Michael
Jordan. I think the J is
Elton Brand.
Swedish. Something like that.
Swedish,
people get tired of that one person that always is great, right?
Yeah.
And LeBron James right now, I know you guys feel about him, but people get tired of giving the person that's probably well-deserving of the MVP. So when a person like Jalen Hurts came into the scene, which we'll be talking about him later, is like, every all the eyes now have shifted over to him. Josh Allen had a good year. So now that's why, in my thinking, Mahomes has had a quiet MVP year just because he's been doing this for the past 3-4 seasons. You know what I mean? Like, what else is he going to do?
Yeah, right. You take it for granted at a certain point. Yeah, that's true. We all have a tendency to assume certain things, and you assume that Mahomes is an MVP candidate every year. Like that's just the standard. So when he does that, it's not impressive to anybody. I mean, now the guy needs to go to 6,000 or 7,000 yards before anyone's even going to really pay any attention to it. And he might do that. He might do that, but it's like that's what it takes before you end up being impressed. So, T-Rock, you were getting ready to say something.
Well, is this now? I'm sure everybody here's picking the Chiefs, but is this a trap game for the Chiefs?
We said the same exact thing. Yeah. I said this last week about the Bills and Dolphins. Yep. I said, man, I don't think it's possible, but boy, that feels like a perfect trap game. I doubt it is now because I don't think the Chiefs could see what Jacksonville did, how they won last week, and think of it as a trap game. Right. If they had blown out, if they had just completely destroyed the Chargers, then you would just, okay, Chargers are going to be Chargers. Like, you don't really care. That doesn't mean the Jags are any good. But the Jags to do what they did, I think, is enough of a wake-up call for the Chiefs that it won't be a trap game. That's just my opinion.
Well, and there's a player we don't talk about a lot. I mean, his name is mentioned, but Christian Kirk is having a fantastic year.
Yeah.
84 catches, the best year of his career.
For sure.
1,100 yards. And so
they paid him. They paid him.
That's why they went and got him.
Yeah.
Yep.
No argument. All right. So now we're going to move on. Saturday night. So they're doing 2 Saturday games. One's at 4:30. The other one is at 8:15 p.m. Saturday. 8:15. Battle of the Northeast. New York Giants, Philadelphia Eagles. Gentlemen, what say you? Anybody?
Yay.
Yeah.
Go Eagles. I mean, let's go, guys. I mean, seriously. What the Giants did last week to get into this game, you can't underestimate them. There's no way that we're going to sit there and say that they're out of the game, even for how well the Eagles are doing. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say a couple months ago we were talking about the NFC East. How many teams from the NFC East are right now in their divisional playoffs right now? There's 3 teams that came out of that division. And we were talking about them trying to say, who's going to be the team that's going to set it out? Philadelphia had set the stage, right? They went on their run. They were ahead of everybody by a mile. Who stays consistent? The Cowboys, the Eagles. Now we have a matchup, divisional race, Giants versus the Eagles. Let's go. I mean, we were kind of making fun of them, and now we have 3 of those teams in the playoffs playing for a chance to get into the conference championship game. So all I know is that the Eagles, if they stay consistent, do what it is that they're going to do. Jalen Hurts just plays what he's been doing all year. It's been fun, Dable. It's been a magical run. You've done awesome with what you're doing with Barkley and what you've been able to get out of Daniel Jones. Kudos to you. But right now, this game, it's hard to go up against the Eagles, man.
Well, it really is. You got some health concerns now with Jalen, right? So he's playing with
a little banged up,
through a sprained throwing shoulder. And of course, he came out. It's so funny when these guys talk about this stuff because he came out today and was like, "There's a bounty on me every week." I'm like,
stupid.
Nobody knew who you were until the beginning.
They're always gunning for me. I'm like, it's just
literally when the season started, people thought like Jalen Hurts is going to be run out of Philly. This was his last chance. He'd never done it. Now he's the old gunslinger. He's the Duke who you can't get him out of here. I mean, this new sheriff in town. It just
I'll be your Huckleberry. So I think some of it will depend on durability for him. They're going to go as far as he's able to take him in this game, and it can only take 1 or 2 really solid stingers in that game if they can't protect him to really change the tide of this thing.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, so then we're going to go to Sunday. They're playing weird times, right? Saturday is 4:30 and 8:15. Sunday is 3 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. 3 p.m. game is the
San Diego Chargers.
Cincinnati Bengals. Buffalo Bills. What do we got, guys? Bengals, Bills. What do we think on this one?
Bengals are getting 5. They're both 5-0 in their last 5 games. I don't know that you have outside of rushing, which Josh Allen had 762 rushing yards. Joe Burrow had 257 rushing yards. They each threw for Burrow threw for a little bit more, 4,400 yards. He had 35 touchdowns. Josh Allen right around 4,300 yards, also 35 touchdowns. This is going to be a good game. Bengals giving up a little over 20 points a game. Bills right around 18 points a game. This is going to be a good game. This is a coin flip for me. I mean, the Bills are at home, so I obviously always give the nod to the home team, and I think they'll pull it out. But man, it's going to be this might be the game of the weekend, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is a matchup. It really, you think about this game, and it's like this is a heavyweight fight right here, man. I mean, these are two explosive offenses, talented, stacked rosters. It should be a really, really good game, and I'm going to be really curious to see how it plays out. And I was a little bit surprised that that's the afternoon game, that they didn't get the evening game.
Yeah,
they got the 3:00 game. So, whatever, but they're similar teams.
Very
this
similar.
This is not a battle of different matchups. These are the same basic team. And when you look across the board between the quarterbacks, the receivers, the running games, I mean, for everything that you can say about a Jamar Chase, you can probably say about a Stephon Diggs. For the things that you can say about a Burrow, you can probably say about a Josh Allen. And then, even the tight ends, I mean, everything really across the board. You have so many similarities here on what these teams can do. I think it's just going to be a slugfest.
Here's what I would say on this game. The difference makers between the two is probably going to be at the running back position, right? You laid out tit for tat every position you can be, but there's not a Mixon, a Joe Mixon on Buffalo's team. They're kind of like a running back by committee. P. Ryan and Mixon, I would say, are the better matchup going into this game as far as running backs are concerned. So I think that if they can lean on that, I think that would be the separation between the two. But yeah, I'm with you guys. This should be just a fun, let's go offense, and just let's have a ball watching these guys go at each other.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what about the intangibles here? Because it's going to be all over. You're going to hear it constantly with Hamlin and
he'll be there, right? I mean, there's no chance that he's not at that game.
Yeah. So how does Buffalo respond? How do they play? Given that that's going to be hanging there, I'm curious to see how if they play any different or if it's super emotionally charged. I'm curious to see how just the vibe of that game is going to be.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a matter of the Bills just the Bengals withstanding that first drive, the first two drives, just withstanding it because they're going to be they're going to be so hyped up.
The energy will be high for sure.
Yeah, it was just like last week's game. We're not going to go back and talk about it, but just the way we texted about it, just the way the Ravens were able to hold the Bengals on that first drive. They were just throwing it down their throats, and they would just buckle down, and it ended up being a fantastic game. I think that's going to have to be now. The Bengals are going to have to be wearing that shoe where it's all right, bend, don't break. They're going to come out fired up, just play your game, and just once we get to the, get into that 20-yard line area, buckle down, settle, let them make them settle for field goals. So they got to withstand this first couple of drives, I think.
Well, it's also really interesting that both teams are coming off incredibly tight games that they arguably should have lost. So it's not even like one is coming off of that and the other came off a clean win. They're in such not only similar teams, but they're in identical situations in terms of what they came off of, where they barely managed to get into this situation. And so last week was a wake-up call for both teams. There's no getting around that. So, whatever they can do with it from here is going to get to be, I think, it's going to be fun to watch. I expect that.
Yeah.
And then we're going to move into the Sunday night game. Sunday, 6:30 p.m. Old school NFL matchup. Dallas Cowboys, San Francisco 49ers. Well, we haven't cared about this game in about 30 years or so.
Yeah.
And now it's relevant again. It's been Aikman. I mean, even last, when was it? Whenever the Bucks were playing, the Bucks and the Cowboys were playing, and they're throwing back to old clips of, Joe Montana and Steve Young and Troy Aikman. And it's kind of like, there's not a single thing. Like, video had just come out of the black and white ages into color. Those are the last video clips that they can show that were relevant for these teams matching up in important games. And now that, boy, it looks like it could be a battle if Dallas can play the way that they played against Tampa, which is a massive if, because the team that they're playing against, that ain't Tampa. San Francisco 49ers, that ain't the Tampa Bay Bucks. They're a very different team. So I think it's very easy to say, oh, man, if Dallas can do that again. Yeah, they're doing it again against a very different opponent. And it's going to be really interesting to see how both teams match up, because they are both very talented, very good teams. There's no doubt on the roster side of things, these are two stacked teams.
That's it. Yeah, I think they were – oh, sorry, Joe.
No, I was just going to say that I think with this game, you know, of all the games that we have been talking about thus far, the one common thing that all these games have in common are head coaches are all offensive-minded coaches. Not one of these guys, any one of these coaches out here are from the defensive side of the ball. So obviously we see now how everything's flipped and how points, running up the score, getting those touchdowns out there is what's happening, and the whole NFL is just changing their mindset on. Now this game is the closest one out of all of them. It's San Fran -3.5, -3.5. That's close, guys. That's a field goal. We're talking about a field goal right now.
Yep.
So, yes, did we jump in a time machine? Are we back in 1995? Is that what we're, Fox is in heaven right now. We got, America's team in San Fran, the battles that we used to have when we were growing up. We would see this we couldn't get away from San Francisco and Dallas when we were watching football in the 90s. It was just, that's what everybody wanted to see. And that's what we got. Now we have that matchup again. And in this game, let's be honest. For Dallas on the defensive side of the ball, Tim, you mentioned it the other night when we were texting. That one guy that's in the middle, he's an eraser. He is a difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. I'm not going to even go there. You guys know how I love my beloved Miami Hurricanes, but you guys in Baltimore had a guy that played linebacker for you that is basically, he was the eraser in his time when he was playing. Ray Lewis was in the ball game. You had to know where he was at all times when you try to do anything offensively, because he would set you back. He would know what you were doing before you were going to do it. Micah Parsons right now is playing football like as if he is that man possessed and trying to do something out there. He's the real deal. He's going to be a difference maker out there. But still, I'm sorry. You're not going to sit there and tell me you're going to slow down the 49ers. It ain't going to happen.
Well, okay, so that's we've all – Purdy – like this will truly show what that man's made of, because he has. Seahawks. We love our Seattle fan base here, but this is a different defense. So even if you look at their like team by team comparison, these are very evenly matched teams, except for points allowed per game. Yep. And Dallas is allowing 14 points a game. San Fran's allowing 23. Is Purdy enough to make up a 9-point differential when they're playing just average out over the year? Now, the thing they have going for them is passing yards allowed. Dallas, 351 yards, a game. So they let you pass on them. So it's just going to be whether or not Purdy can overcome your Parsons and actually make some big plays happen. It's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I think it will. I think the matchup's going to be really interesting because, you look at these teams and, they want to do similar things.
Yeah.
Each of them coming into this game is going to want to do similar things. It's going to be a healthy dose of running the ball. On the Niners side, it's largely going to be Christian McCaffrey. On the Dallas side, it should be largely Tony Pollard. It's probably going to be largely Ezekiel Elliott or some split, but it really should be Tony Pollard. But the idea is, okay, we're both going to run it. We both have strong offensive lines. We both want to push the ball downfield. And it's just going to be whoever can really kind of impose their will. I would be shocked if this was a blowout. The only thing that I would be very careful of if I am Dallas is not to come in overly confident because of the type of win you just had. Right, we were talking a little bit ago about, I don't think the Chiefs are going to overlook the Jags because they just saw the type of win that the Jags had. Dallas has to be careful that they don't come in overconfident because of the type of game that they just had and feeling like, oh man, we're the dominant team, because you're going to run into a buzzsaw if you come in and you're not prepared from the first snap to go against a strong team.
real quick. So with what you're saying, 2 weeks ago, Dallas did what? Going into the playoffs, they looked horrendous.
Horrible.
Next thing you know, the worst thing that they did this past weekend was their field goal kicker missed 4 extra points. And then like ESPN, all the the big talking heads were going bananas because now they got America's team, they got their team, and they can talk about them. But which team is going to show up on Sunday? The one that played 2 weeks ago, or the one that did what they did last weekend?
Yeah,
that's true,
and it's true. I mean, because they've shown, unfortunately, I know Dallas fans don't like it sometimes the way that I talk about the team, but the reality is, they play down to their competition the vast majority of the time, and they find ways to lose games that they should be winning without trouble. And look, they played a great game against Tampa. It only matters if they can turn around and play an even better game against San Francisco.
Yep.
You can't take a step back. You need to take a step forward. It won't even be, you can't even do the same because you won't be able to do the same. The things that worked for you against Tampa, they're just not going to work against San Francisco. And the truth of the matter also, I think at this point, there's enough evidence to point at this. They're not the same coaches either. Todd Bowles and Kyle Shanahan are not in the same league as a head coach right now. And so when you look at what's working against Tampa, what adjustments are they making? San Francisco is making adjustments in game constantly, and so what was working for you isn't going to work for you all game. They're going to make the adjustments that they need in order to be able to turn that against you. They're a really good team. I mean, right this minute, I don't know. San Francisco could possibly be the best team in the NFL. They would have a strong argument right now to be the best team in football. 100%. And the way you can know is who of the teams that are left, who would feel confident going into a game against them? I can't picture anyone feeling very good about going into that game.
Going against the Niners?
Yeah.
The only team that I could see that would feel that way would be Kansas City, and that's it. That's the only team that I would think that would be like, okay, going into this game, I think they actually have a shot to do something. That's it. That would be the only ones. Only because I know that it's so hard to stop them offensively. Even though their defense is as good as it is, that would be the only factor in them.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it's, this Sunday night game is going to be, it has the potential to be at least a really, really good matchup. And whoever wins that game, I got to feel like they're going to deserve it. And when they then move on from there, it's going to get really interesting beyond this as we start to really see the rest of these games shake out. Because when you talk about an AFC championship game that could potentially, let's assume for a moment that the Chiefs do beat the Jags, right? So again, we're playing the odds. That's the most likely scenario. Then you're talking about it's either Chiefs Bengals or Chiefs Bills in the AFC championship game. I mean, that is a killer game. That's a killer matchup.
They gave us a show last year.
Yeah, and then on the NFC side, I mean, is it the Giants, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Niners? I mean, man, all of those teams, they're physical. Like, these are physical teams, and particularly what we saw last week from the Giants against Minnesota, they out-physicaled the Minnesota Vikings. And so, if you can go in and be physical in these games, man, I mean, we're really looking at, some hard fought games to be able to get to the Super Bowl. Nobody's skating through. The most that you could say is Kansas City, who got a first round bye, and then they played the lowest seeded Jacksonville Jaguars, right? That's that. They have the easiest, clearest path to the Super Bowl. They should and would be the most rested as well, and and healthy and everything else. They didn't even have to play their guys at the end of the season, so they've had a lot of good things happening for them. But outside of that, man, these other teams will have been through wars. The Bengals against the Ravens, the Bills against the Dolphins, the Giants and Vikings. Maybe not the Cowboys, and and the Eagles obviously had a first round bye, but they're going to have a tough game, I think, against the Giants. And, the Niners are going to be tough. So a Niners-Chiefs Super Bowl wouldn't be surprising. Would not be surprising. all red, that could be a really, really tough matchup. So I'll be curious to see where it goes, man. I really am. Football been a heck of a season, and man, the playoffs have just so far have not failed to entertain, other than maybe that Tampa Dallas game. But that was entertaining just to watch what happened to Tom Brady and see, and let me ask this. So let's transition to this a little bit while we have a little bit of time left in the show. What do you guys think? Is Brady done? What's your vote with the Bucks?
Yeah,
okay,
with the Bucks. Yeah,
what do you guys
think?
Coming
back there.
Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like he was bidding farewell at his conference, but then you may have just been reading into it just because of the situation. But I don't know I don't remember him ever wrapping up a season like that, and what he said. But I mean, nor do I care. I just can't read that dude. He's weird to me.
For
I'll
sure.
just be glad if he's out, but I don't know.
Yeah, no,
People
I think
saying
he's
going to the Raiders. They're saying I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they said San Fran wasn't out of the question.
No, I know. I keep seeing that too. That everyone keeps thinking. They say Kyle Shanahan really regrets not having signed him a couple of years ago, and that they could easily see him going there for at least a year. But I'm going, okay, man. What do you like? Are you just amassing quarterbacks at this point?
Right.
What do you
to
need?
What end?
You still got Jimmy. You got Trey Lance. You now have Brock Purdy, and you're going to bring in Tom Brady. Now, I know we're not going to have all of those guys on the roster going into next year, but man, what a wealth of talent at the quarterback position if they also bring in a Tom Brady. Now, the reality, though, and to talk out of the other side of my mouth here, they're not paying any of those guys right now. If you look at what Garoppolo's making, look at Trey Lance, look at Brock Purdy, they have no money going out right now at the quarterback position. I don't have Garoppolo's contract numbers in front of me, but it ain't a lot, right? And he's off the books after this season anyway and should be gone. So you look at, I got Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. I'm paying those guys absolutely nothing. Brady, I think right now is only like a $15 million cap hit for the Bucks. So you could get Brady. He would love to come there and would probably go for fairly cheap. I bet you could get him $25 million for 1 year. And look, I still wouldn't do it if I were them, but I don't think the money will be the thing that prevents them from doing it.
I don't know.
Well, and you look at the last game where he, looked rough. He looked rough, but he still threw for 4,694 yards this year. Didn't 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Completion percentage is still in the top 10. So you're like, he still. I don't know that he can. I don't know later in the season he could keep it up through the playoffs. That might be a little bit harder.
The only thing I'll say to that is it reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger's year before last year. If you look at what Brady, I think he threw the most passes in NFL history this year, if I'm not mistaken. I think his yards were less than 6, or they were like 6 or 7 yards per catch. That was a lot what happened with Ben, where Ben threw for like 3,500 yards, 30 touchdowns, and you're like, yeah, he still got it. And then the next year, it was just like, oh. And Brady's doing the exact same thing, getting the ball out the fastest he's ever gotten the ball. A lot of that, most of it is probably he's got no offensive line. So wherever he goes, if he goes, you bet it's going to have an amazing offensive line, which San Francisco does.
Mm-hmm.
733 passes.
That's insane. I mean, that team failed him. Look, I'm not a Brady fan by any stretch of the imagination, but they knew what they had, and they knew who they were, and they failed him. Now, you could also say he chose to come back late and notify the team late.
Sure.
That was very sloppily handled. There's no doubt about that. But in general, the team failed him because you have an old quarterback who was never athletic to begin with. And the one thing that he needs is time. And it's been shown time and time and time again that if the guy has a solid pocket, a solid offensive line, he's protected, he will find the open man. He will make the play. He still has the arm strength. I mean, we've seen he can push the ball down the field. There's absolutely no issue with that. So that's normally the first thing that goes is your arm strength, right? So he still has the arm strength. Clearly, the short-term accuracy, that's not going anywhere. He has the ability to hit on all the short passes. But he's got to have a clean pocket. He's got to have a place to be able to set up. And if he doesn't have that, then there's just not a whole lot that he can do. And that's not just him. That's the vast majority of quarterbacks out there. It just gets even more exponentially more important for a Tom Brady. So, that team, I can't imagine why he would want to come back to Tampa. It wouldn't make sense for him. No. I mean, at this point, if you only have 1, possibly 2 years left, you're going to want to be comfortable. You're going to want to give yourself a realistic chance of being able to win some games. He doesn't have either one of those things in Tampa. And he did not look very happy for the vast majority of the season. He was not a guy having fun.
Well, he had other things going on too. So that plays into it.
Yeah, agreed. But I mean, those other things are caused by his decision to play. So if anything, I think you might as well have fun doing it. You gave up everything else for it. So, you ought to be able to enjoy it a little bit. And, I think there are 2 or 3 teams. It's the Raiders. In my mind, Raiders are far and away number 1.
McDaniels.
Yeah, 100%.
Makes sense.
And if I'm Tom Brady, and I'm going, okay, Josh McDaniels, I can walk in. I know the offense already, so my job's easy. I've got Devontae Adams, the best receiver that I've had since Randy Moss in 2017. I've got Darren Waller, who's my tight end to replace Rob Gronkowski. So, they're made up in a similar vein of the best Patriots teams. Now, are there still things they need to work on? 100%. But the offensive line is the main thing that they need to focus on. And if you had a decent amount of cap space, which the Raiders happen to have, and they're going to free up even more once Carr's out of there, you can definitely focus on getting that offensive line where you need it to be. So I just think total comfort, Raiders make a ton of sense. And I think they'd do whatever he wanted done to be able to make it happen. Outside of that, yeah, there are some others. I mean, the Niners we already talked about. Some people say the Jets. I just feel like they're still a little too young for him to want to go through that. But man, they're not that far off. I mean, they got some real talent there. But I don't think it's going to happen. Just my personal thing. I don't think the Jets will go. Still, we were talking last week about what do the Dolphins do with their Tua problem, right? Going into next season. And look, I don't think Brady would go there, but the reason I don't think he'd go there has nothing to do with the team, has nothing to do with Tua. It's because they already got busted for tampering, trying to get Brady there in the first place. So I just think that door has closed. I don't think you could then turn around and legitimately sign with the team without it being somewhat controversial. And I don't think the guy wants too many more things to mar his legacy beyond what's already there. So those are the ones. I mean, of course, again, you see the Carolina Panthers of the world and teams like that, but a Brady doesn't need to go to that type of a situation. I'd retire before I did that. So
sure.
Here's what I'd say to that, only because of the Michigan ties, is Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, is a huge Michigan booster. He graduated from there. Yep. And so that is why they got in trouble a few years ago, was because of the whole, him wanting to get Brady to come down there. But I think to touch on not only just Brady, if you think about the major quarterback rotations that are going out there, the rumor is, Rodgers trying to figure out where he's going to go. So I think it's going to be kind of like one of those domino effects with David Carr too out as the Raiders quarterback, is that whatever one settles, the opportunity to open itself up that much more. So say Brady comes down to Miami, then Rodgers decides to go to San Francisco. Or to the Jets even, you know what I mean? So I think with Carr, Rodgers, and Brady being out there and them being able to still do what it is that they do as a quarterback position and be successful, that I think once that one domino falls, if it does fall, then you can see the other ones going to these other destinations to become their quarterbacks for the future. Yeah. And I truly, wouldn't be surprised with Rodgers and Brady having that connection to LA. The Raiders are absolutely a sweet spot for them because we all know that's barely an hour flight back to Los Angeles. Yep. A 3-hour car drive or the Tesla tunnel will get you there in 2 minutes. However you want to play it out. I'm just saying that is a sweet spot for somebody that wants to go there. And you're right, the weapons are in place for them to succeed.
Yeah. And don't forget that the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas this next year. So
yeah.
It
makes an interesting setup.
There's one big reason why I don't think he would go to the Raiders, and that's their defense. He is 16 of the 19 seasons he's played. He's had a top 10 defense. And so now you go to the Raiders, who have 27th this year, 28th, something like that. So I don't know that he can put up enough points to overcome their ineptness on that side of the ball.
But if you have cap space, and the only two things that you need to focus on are offensive line and your overall defense, and I'd have to go through their defensive roster to figure it out. But I feel like you could plug some holes pretty quickly. So
you're taking a
some
chance.
Assurances.
Yeah, you're taking a chance for sure.
Yeah, that all those guys would gel, especially the offensive line, just needing. I mean, yeah, you'd have to overhaul that. I mean, that's the thing, though. What their past 3 number 1 draft picks not even on the team any longer, so it's just such a hole that it put them in. But yeah, Brady makes the most sense to me, and with the Raiders, but we'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
What do you think about Aaron Rodgers?
Did that dude? I swear to you, he hated football this year. I think this year was just the year he was like, God, this sucks.
I'm sick and tired of this.
This just sucks. I could be doing so many other things. He looked so, except for when it came down to when it was getting close and, they were making the playoff push. Then you kind of saw a new spark. I mean, was it Christian Watson? I mean, all of a sudden became this, this new receiver for him and everything. But he missed Devontae. He'll come back. I don't know. I mean,
but is it with the Packers?
Do they want him back? I don't know. Sure, I feel like they're all just done with each other at this point.
Feels like it.
Yeah, no, I don't think he'll come back to the Packers. But I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to cut him and just let him go wherever he wants? Is he going to pull one of those deals, Brett Favre's, and go to Minnesota? You know what I mean? I think they're going to try and control where he goes at some point, or some way or the other, because they don't want him to go to Chicago. They don't want him to go anywhere within the division. So it's going to be difficult for them just to cut bait and just say, "Hey, all right, see you later. Thanks for the memories."
It feels like a disgruntled marriage who's just staying together for the kids.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And I have to see his contract situation on what the walk away this year would. I just don't have it in front of me, but I'll tell you a team that I think could be a really interesting one as it pertains to Aaron Rodgers. The Tennessee Titans. And this is a team that you've got your running back. They're a competitive team, and they don't have a quarterback. They're going to make a play for somebody. Is it a Derek Carr? It won't be a Brady. Do they make a play for a Derek Carr? Do they make a play for someone who's just an off the radar type of a person, Sam Darnold or somebody? If I'm them and I actually think I'm a competitive team, I'm probably throwing my hat in the ring on Aaron Rodgers. So you guys don't think so?
I mean, yeah, I don't know what the Tannehill situation would be contract-wise either, and then they still have Malik Willis. So they're going to give up on Malik that quickly? What was he, third round? Third or fourth?
Yeah, but I don't think it's given up on him, right? I think, you're going to have, and Aaron Rodgers is only going to be there for a year or two. He's not going to play very long.
Yeah.
Right? This is the Niners wouldn't be giving up on Brock Purdy if they signed Tom Brady. I think it's kind of the same type of a thing. If anything, I feel like, Malik then gets to sit behind Aaron Rodgers and learn. They could pitch it to Malik just hey, it worked for Aaron Rodgers sitting behind Brett Favre. So, again, I don't know. I just think they're a team that I don't hear mentioned very often as being in the quarterback hunt. And, Ryan Tannehill's not the answer for them. And so beyond that point, they haven't seen enough to think that it could be Malik Willis. So if you don't know that it's Malik Willis and you don't think, or you're pretty sure it's not Ryan Tannehill, it's got to be somebody who's not on your roster right now. And,
what kind of wide receiver moves will they have to make for that to happen?
Yeah, go back and
have Aaron Rodgers come in.
Yeah, because you can't jump into I'm going to throw to Okonkwo and Robert Woods, and those are my number 1 and number 2.
Yeah,
they gave up a lot for Robert Woods.
Traylon Burks played really well for them this year. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he was
down the
rookie,
stretch.
But he was the rookie that came out and did some stuff because he was injured in the beginning of the year. But
you go back to the Eagles and offer 2 first rounds for AJ Brown.
Well, I was going to say, I think Treylon Burks is who they brought in with the draft pick from the AJ Brown trade. So, and they really felt like he was a very similar build and style as an AJ. So they kind of felt, and they were hopeful, hey, we might be able to get a discount AJ Brown here. So similar build, similar skill set for a lot less money. I don't think they know if they have that yet because of him spending some time injured and things like that this year.
And can Rodgers make them better? I think he's the kind of guy that could.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big question mark on the receiver.
And he's going to need a home. So honestly, I mean, if you're looking at it, where do you want to go? Where is it appealing? Well, you're not going to want to go to Carolina any more than you would probably want to go to Tennessee. And also, not for nothing, Tennessee has no state income tax. So, that does play a role, and as it should, in people's decision making. When you're
for the smart
ones. Playing and making, yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so you look at a Tennessee, and if I'm Aaron Rodgers, hey, I got if I want to play 2 more years, but I can go to this team and have no state income tax. Maybe I can take a little bit less money to have them build the team because I'm not getting taxed. So there are some things there that, that I think could come into play as well. So,
well, what prevents Rodgers from going to the Raiders?
Nothing at all. Nothing at all that I know of. Again, I don't have his contract in front of me, but if they want him, I think the thing that's starting to come into play for preventing Aaron Rodgers is teams wanting to deal with Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly. I was going to say Aaron Rodgers himself. He is he is his own worst enemy.
That's
right.
You
know what I mean? And you were mentioning it earlier where we could see him landing because he comes across as a spiteful person. I could see him going to Minnesota. You know what I mean? Just be I'm gonna get back at you guys. His personality lends itself to come across that way. Obviously, we don't know any of these people, but that's seeing him, how he interacts with people, how he talks.
He doesn't talk to his own family. He refuses to speak to his own family because he didn't like the way, he didn't like their attitudes. So, I mean, yes, he's a guy that holds grudges and he's petty. And that's not always a bad thing, but I do think in Vegas, look, it could be interesting. I mean, certainly the Devontae thing is going to play a role there. And Devontae has said that he wants to be involved in the decision-making on quarterback. We have no idea what, Devontae's thought process would be on that. Maybe he's thrilled that he got away from him and he has no interest in playing with him again. He left when he had a chance. It's hard to know, but I think there were a few teams and we've knocked them out, right? I mean, and honestly, I don't even know why San Francisco's looking, but they seem to be on the list for people. But then it's Raiders, it's Jets, it's Titans, and again, possibly Dolphins, even though I think they're probably going to go with Tua coming into this year as well. So, I think those are your main teams.
Doctors
I'll give you a team.
I got one that I just thought of too. So you go first.
I want to give you a team where I think he would do good at, and for multiple reasons. So, of course, you're playing in Green Bay. You've got the weather. You got everything else you got to deal with. Why not go to a place where you could be in a dome? What about the New Orleans Saints?
Nice. That's an interesting one. That's interesting.
They were 7-9 this year, 7-10 this year, and honestly, it's quarterback play that probably kept them from being better than that.
Yeah, hard to argue.
I mean, they were one game out of the division lead, which, I mean, they
incredibly weak division,
very weak division. There for the having, home game. In the playoffs, when your division, you get a home game. I think they make a lot of sense there.
That's an interesting team.
You want to take the ball out of Taysom Hill's hands? Come on, Jeff. Come on.
Tight end Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
But, the other thing, too, I'll throw another team out there that I feel like something's going to have to happen with. I don't know what it is. And I don't know that it's an attractive destination for the record, but the Washington Commanders.
He's been linked there. He was linked there last year.
Yeah. I mean, they're not going to stick with Wentz. They don't seem to be fully sold on Taylor Heineke. They have a lot of really good pieces. I mean, when you look at what that team has right now, they've got, I mean, between Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, I mean, they've got some offensive weapons. Brian Robinson running the ball.
Antonio Gibson catching the balls on the backfield.
That's right. I mean, they're an attractive team. And the defense, too. They've got some studs on defense.
Yeah. Young coming back, fully healthy.
That's right. That's going to be huge for them.
They're another team that's a quarterback away, and another team that was, one game out of the playoffs.
That's right. That's right.
That's a pretty good one. I could see that.
And so that's where it gets interesting to me.
I could see that as well, except for the fact that you have Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, and who am I missing? And an up-and-coming Giants, offense that's working its way up. So I could see it happening. However, there are a few challenges and young quarterbacks in that division that I could see him being like, maybe I'll go elsewhere.
Whereas, with the Saints, you got the NFC South, and theoretically they got nobody at quarterback in any of those divisions.
Who's scaring you going out of there?
Yeah. So,
I'll tell you, I saw something just the other day, interview with Sean Payton. You guys may have seen this, but he's interviewing with the Houston Texans. He's talking with a bunch of Arizona Cardinals, various teams. And the question came up about what the compensation was that the Saints were going to want in order to give up Sean Payton's rights. And, he was somewhat vague about it, but he essentially said it's looking like a mid to late first round pick. So, part of that whole musical chairs thing that's going to happen with the coaching that's going on right now is also going to be teams with draft capital. And because wherever Sean Payton goes is going to be very appealing for a quarterback to go. And if he goes to the Houston Texans, that's not appealing for anybody. But outside of that, and I don't think he would, except they did ask him about the Texans, and his statement on them was, look, they're not that far away. They only had a couple of wins, right? But they have some good young players, and more importantly, they have a ton of draft capital. And so I think a Sean Payton who's looking at it going, I can come in and kind of mold this team to be exactly what I want it to be, that could be pretty appealing to him. I don't think it's an appealing situation for an Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady. They're too late in their career. They don't have time to wait 3 or 4 years for that to start to come to fruition. But I think where he goes is going to be interesting, because I don't think there's any doubt that there are some people that are very, very happy that the Chargers, for whatever reason, decided to not fire Brandon Staley. And some of the people that are happy about it are the Kansas City Chiefs. There are plenty of people that are looking at that going, that could have easily been where Sean Payton went. And so the people that are in that Chargers division, they're super happy that they're not having to deal with a legitimate Chargers team coached by a really, really good coach. So I think that was going to be interesting. To me, I just feel like Sean Payton in Arizona makes the most sense, unless he just does not believe in Kyler Murray. And I wouldn't blame him if he didn't. But I just feel like, to me, that makes the most sense to me for him to go. Again, just don't know enough about their capital situation to determine whether or not they'd be willing to make that trade. Because that's steep for a coach. You got to really believe not only in the coach,
for sure,
but in the long term of having that coach there.
Yeah.
And a first round pick for a head coach, you just don't see these things very often, right? I mean, coaches, you just don't see it. I mean, it's only happened a few times that we've seen, draft picks exchanged for coaches. So it's a rarity, but Sean Payton could be one of the very few that could warrant that type of exchange.
For sure.
So outside of that, anything else we want to cover before we start to wrap it up for the evening? We've touched on the upcoming games. We've talked a little bit about some off-season moves. Any coaching carousel stuff we want to discuss at all?
No, we already talked briefly about the Chargers. Of course, they fired their offensive coordinator, which, again, I don't. Yeah. They scored plenty of points. He wasn't the issue. Something to keep an eye on is the Bucks, and I think, honestly, I think their whole coaching carousel there, like, is Todd Bowles going to be back? They're already talking about whether or not Brian Leftwich will be back, which could have some some downward, I'm not sure what word I'm looking for here, but
it could impact things.
It could impact things. Yeah, we'll say that. So it could impact what the Steelers do with Matt Canada. There's some rumors that that Tomlin's holding on, waiting, kind of not wait and see mode to see which offensive coordinators are fired before he makes a decision on Matt Canada. Look, Byron Leftwich, since 2019, he's had the 4th, 3rd, and the 2nd ranked offense up until this year. Again, offensive line, I think, was just a huge issue for him this year. So that'd be interesting to see. I don't know how Staley kept his job. I really don't know how. But I mean, he just threw his offensive coordinator under the bus to try to hold on for a little bit longer. But I feel bad for the Chargers QB. I really do. I feel bad for Herbert. So we'll see. So
and I'll tell you something else too. He's going to be back in the coaching carousel this offseason again. It's going to be Eric Bieniemy, the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator. I mean, this is a guy who has another MVP season out of quarterback Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs will potentially make it to another Super Bowl, another incredibly explosive offensive year. And, will this finally be the year? Is this Carolina? Is it, it clearly isn't going to be the Chargers. But is it a Carolina? Where does this guy end up fitting in? Do the Commanders make a change with Ron Rivera? I think I don't know that they will.
No, because they fired their offensive coordinator, and Rivera's in on
Scott Turner.
He's in on the interviews for the next offensive coordinator, which looks like he's just rehashing his Rolodex of friends, and looks like just bringing in the same old people. So that's I don't.
What the NFL does. They recycle coaches.
That's
they
it.
Just recycle coaches. Recycle coaches.
Exactly.
And I guess the only one I'm really curious in is D'Amico Ryans.
Yep.
I'm interested to see where he's going to land.
He has a high likelihood in Carolina. I feel like Carolina is a good fit for D'Amico Ryans. I could be off on that, but that's just my initial instinct. I just feel like, man.
They have a good, and I think they got an up and coming defense there too that he can kind of stat. Although looking at the divisional round, all the coaches, I think Hefe already brought it up, but all the coaches were former offensive coordinators, not a single defensive coordinator as a head coach.
True.
So it's tough, but I like what D'Amico does. He definitely deserves a shot at head coaching anyway. So, yeah,
I'll be curious. I agree. I think the D'Amico, again, you look at that Panthers defense with Brian Burns and, anchoring that defense. I mean, you put D'Amico in there, I think those guys could just go to another level. Mm-hmm. They still have some things to figure out on the offensive side of the ball, like who their quarterback is and, some of that stuff. I don't know who they plan on trying to go with, or if they're going to be in on these quarterbacks in the offseason. But they've got good potential. And look, outside of that, what's it going to be? Is he going to go to the Texans and be the next guy to get fired in 1 year? He's going to be the third black coach in a row to have the job in an interim basis and then get fired. It just the Texans need a permanent solution. They have to quit the Band-Aid interim coach type things. It's making them look worse and worse as an organization to make these constant changes.
100%.
Not a good look.
No.
So, So I don't know. It'll be – I'm very curious to see how things continue to play out in this offseason. The NFL now, it's gotten so popular. There's not really much of an offseason. There's an offseason from playing, but there's not an offseason from news and all of the constant changes and information that come out. So there's plenty that happens with that. So – but yeah, man, this is going to be a fun upcoming weekend. I'm looking forward to it. Had a great time talking about it with you guys. Any last notes from anybody before we wroap it up?
No, let's quickly though get our picks in. So Jags Chiefs. I'm going Chiefs.
Yeah, I think Chiefs.
T-Rock.
Man, well, see, this screwed me over because I predicted before the playoffs that the Chiefs are going to get knocked out in this round, and now
there you go. Your pick's made.
My pick is made, so I'm picking. I have to go with the Jaguars because I got to.
There you go.
It makes me angry.
Right.
But at least
it's not worth doing if you don't put $1,000 on it. So,
that's right.
You definitely gotta.
You gotta live
definitely.
it. You gotta believe it.
Put $1,000 in that quesarito on there. Double or nothing on that quesarito.
I'm already +1 in the quesarito category, so we're throw it up there.
All right, so Giants, Eagles.
I until I see otherwise, I got to go Eagles.
Fair enough.
I'm going Giants.
G-Man.
G-Man.
I like it.
Wow, going
Let's
with
make
the
some
G-Man.
noise. Let's go.
I like it.
Wow, big pick.
I'll go Eagles.
All right.
Boo.
I think it's gonna be a good game, though.
I like it. We're split on that one, Tim. We're T-Rock and Hefe got the G-Men. The other
okay.
The other two clowns got the Eagles.
Oh, hell no.
All right. So where we go next?
Bengals, Bills.
Ooh.
Bills.
Yeah, I'm Bills. Wow.
Wow, unanimous.
Wow. All 4 on the Bills.
And I'm not going to be shocked if we're wrong on this. Are you?
It's that game, right? We're like, but if it goes the other way, not surprised.
Not surprised. All right, and then Cowboys, Niners.
Niners.
I'm going Cowboys.
Ooh, Tim, you're really sticking to the whole Purdy thing. I like.
Yeah, I do.
I like that you're not backing down from what you've said about him and the fact that can he be trusted. I like your conviction. I like that you're staying with it. Good for you. You're wrong.
I mean, I think he
you.
can be trusted. Yeah. I just don't know if he can be trusted against the likes of Micah Parsons. I mean, that dude is just an animal, and he just.
I agree. He's legit.
Can he shake him up enough to really,
That's it.
So yeah, I'm going to go with the boys. I hate myself for saying it.
Yeah, that's
Thank
tough.
you.
If Dak plays the way he did,
which team
against the Bucs,
shows up?
They're Super Bowl contenders.
Mm-hmm.
They've got the defense, they've got the run game, they've got the line. It all falls, and they got the receivers. It all falls on Dak. With that said, he's too inconsistent this year. I don't see it happening. So I'm going to go Niners. Again, not going to be surprised if Cowboys pull it out. I'm not. And I wouldn't have said that last week. I wouldn't have said that last week based on the way they played against the Commanders. But if Dak plays the way he played, there's no one that can beat them. I mean, they are a stacked team. No one's they can play with anyone. It's just the inconsistency is what gets it from me. So I will love to see it, though, man. It's going to be good because you talk about Micah Parsons, and he's the guy that wants to go against the best offensive player. Well, that best offensive player is a guy that's old that we don't talk about, but that offensive lineman is Trent Williams, and that dude is a wall. So he's going to have his hands full. So it's going to be a fun game. It's going to be a fun weekend, y'all.
Heck yeah.
It really is. Yeah, looking forward to it. So I'm sure we'll be continuing to talk about all of this stuff and more. You Get the Horn Show, man. I'm excited about this. We're on, of course, YouTube and Twitter and TikTok, all at You Get the Horn Show. But now, man, with the podcast going, every basic legitimate podcasting platform, we're on it. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Radio Public, everything you can think of, man. So it's easy to be able to find us, easy to be able to keep up with the show. Tons of content, long form on the podcast, and then lots of short form stuff on the other platforms. So really, really excited about being able to get that launched as well. And man, we're going to be talking soon. A lot of good stuff coming up. And gentlemen, we had a good time. We'll all talk soon.
Y'all.
Have a good one.
Later.